Hello, Henry Borrasso. Am I pronouncing? I should have asked that before I started. Borrasso, is that?
Perfect.
Thank you, thank you. Lead compositor on Black Dahlia and VFX artist, and I suppose we should start for people who have no idea, who have never watched a Corridor Crew episode in their life. I have a 5-year-old son. Let's say you wanted to explain to him what a VFX/compositor does on just any project, not just Black Dahlia, but like any project. What would you tell him?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of tough for a 5-year-old.
Okay, let's say 6.
Yeah, it's basically all the assets of a project come to one place. So if you have your 3D dinosaur in your real jungle, and then you got guys with ropes pulling the ropes to move the trees, and so that some trees need to be in front of the dinosaur, some trees need to be behind the dinosaur. The dinosaur needs a shadow on the real footage ground. Somebody has to stitch that all together and make it look real. Like the footage has grain, the dinosaur doesn't have grain. The grain needs matched. You can think of it a lot like Photoshop, but for moving images instead of still frames.
I love that you went with dinosaurs. Yeah. It's just like 5-year-olds. What are they into? Dinosaurs? Yeah, let's go there. I love it. Yeah, and that actually that's a very, very good explanation. It's putting stuff in that wasn't there before.
Right.
So let's rewind a bit. Let's talk about how you came to Take-Two. What was your career like before and up to Black Dahlia?
I think back, it's been quite a while. But I was literally 23, 24 when I started with Take-Two. So basically, I feel like I was just a kid, you know. Through a very strange scenario, I end up in charge of a department for compositing. When I was really a 2D artist, you know, doing cartoon type work for children's video games, and I started getting real deep into 3D work. The 2D stuff was kind of over. 3D was the rage, and yeah, like I said, through a weird chain of events, I end up in charge of a department that, you know, making interactive motion pictures, pretty much.
Did you start with titles before Ripper, or were you involved in Hell, for instance?
I did work on Hell.
Yeah,
but I did a lot. That was one of my few projects where I did some 3D.
Yeah, like the background art and stuff, or the talking animations.
Yeah, and before that was Bill Cosby's Picture Pages. It was a rehash they took all the old footage from the 70s TV spots, and they basically turned it all into a game using his voice from the old TV series to make little interactive games for kids. You know?
Yeah.
So that was 2D. That was more cartoon type of work.
Yeah. So, did you used to work like in? Have you always worked in games, or because I know your career now is in movies?
Before I went to Take-Two, I worked in advertising. I did newspaper, the big full page spreads with all the cars and all the bursts.
Yeah.
So I had a double major out of art school. I had illustration and advertising.
Nice.
So I went into advertising, and really, Take-Two was my first real job. Literally, I was 22 years old. You know. Yeah.
Nice. All right, let's move it up a notch to Ripper, the game that everybody knows. So your work on Ripper as a compositor, because now they had a bunch of FMV shots. Did you like have to hit the ground running with that project, or were you like
Well,
familiar with the tech?
can I say something about Take Two a little bit first?
Yeah, if you want it off the record, let me know. I'll cut it out.
No. I loved that job. I absolutely did. I loved all the people I worked with. But it was a wave, and basically, my opinion, the CD-ROM coming out um, after I was there for probably about a year. Basically, we went from floppies at 1.5 meg overnight to easy 350 meg.
Mm.
Even more now, but just on a CD alone. So that's one CD. So basically, the gaming industry went berserk, and that's how a young guy like me ends up, riding a wave, getting involved in all these projects that were nationwide projects. So Ripper is what, 6 CDs, and I
Yep.
believe Black Dahlia is 8.
Yes.
And my memory's right. So, and they were cheap to produce. And before that, we were putting 12 floppies in to install. So that's how everything got nuts.
Yeah.
Now, from what I understand, Ryan Brandt, the owner, he was only like 21 years old, and I met him a few times. Real nice guy, really cool with me. He basically, his father had contacts, and he had money. He called Robert De Niro Uncle Bobby.
Okay.
One of his dad's friends. So it was crazy in a good way. So we were out in the middle of nowhere making these games. They bought, I believe, Paragon software, and they turned it into Take Two, which was Paragon was basically, if I like Commodore 64 kind of gaming.
Mm.
So it was nothing like Take Two. So I give all the credit to my career to that craziness, of going from 2D to 3D to interactive movies to having big actors in the game. So basically, that leads into Ripper, which when they shot Ripper, how do you put it? They underestimated. When they got all the footage, they shot it all on blue screen. They edited it all down. And it was 3 hours worth of blue screen in the early 90s. Now, movies and TV shows back then had a second here and a second there, maybe 3 seconds or 4 seconds of blue screen in between all the other shooting. This is the mid 90s, So when they edited it all down and it came out to be 3 hours, and they did that math, they were shocked.
It's like, oh, did we really? Yeah, you did.
On how long it was going to take to composite all this. Basically, After Effects was your more consumer product to do green screen. And really, I think that math would work out to be like 4 years to complete the project, something like that. I'm kind of guessing, but it was a long time. And then there was like Cineon and stuff at the time for major motion picture. This is all shot on video, at 480p DVD quality. So basically, it was out of control. So they basically had to do some research and figure out how to do this. So there's this software at the time called Flame. It was used for high-end TV commercials and a lot of film work at the time. The only thing is it costs like $1 million.
And you already had Christopher Walken on set, so that's easy a few $1 million already.
Right. The system itself was the size of 2 refrigerators. It went in another room. It was called Onyx One. And so they bought a used version. I think it was, I'm kind of guessing here, but I think it was like a half a million, this used version. And just, it was crazy, like $30,000 a year just to support it.
Oh, wow.
So it was big for them to do. And basically, I was the 2D guy that worked with 3D, was in between everything, and all the craze was all the first person shooters, Doom, I think, and stuff like that. So let's snatch Henry because he knows a lot about 2D. He's really good in Photoshop. Let's pull him over and put him in charge of and train him in this new technology. So I'm like, train me on $1 million system? I can't say no to that, So, and so they brought in people from Canada, where the software was made at the time, and it was an adventure. It started my adventure. I've been running this same software, Flame, for well over 30 years now.
Has it gotten smaller than refrigerators?
Yeah, it runs on the most powerful system you can put together, but a normal system.
Oh, okay.
Workstations.
So oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
So how long did it take from we've shot all the video, we bought 2 refrigerators, here, Henry, have at it. How long did it take from the here, Henry, have at it to finished compositing?
Okay, so that's where everything gets weird. Now I'm like 25, so we had to bring in freelancers. So I'm in charge, but I got a couple freelancers. This is Ripper now, I got a couple freelancers, and they know what they're doing. I've been trained. I got somebody to ask. They're just freelancers, so they're not overwhelmingly great at their job. They're pretty decent, So basically, at least I got somebody to ask questions to. I got these guys. I'm 25. Some of them are older than me, and I really wasn't in charge as much as I would like to think I was. I was just, basically, it was a whole, how do you put it? I got trained doing Ripper, trying to, basically, I took every flaw that was in Ripper and I fixed it for Black Dahlia. So,
yeah.
So basically, that was probably a good, I don't remember the timing exactly, but it was a good 3-4 months before we even got running and started processing. And then we had, on that machine that's so expensive, we had to do night shifts. And basically 24 hours a day, that machine had to run processing shots in order to get it done for, I think it took about 6 to 9 months to get it all done. But we did it.
I mean, that is impressive because Ripper looks pretty good for a mid-90s FMV. I can think of much worse. And it does have some fairly complicated stuff in it, like moving camera. There's that opening shot where the camera sort of pans around this actress as she's opening her front door and stuff like that. And you're saying this is your first run around the circus, or however you put it. How there's some panning camera in there and stuff. Not simple stuff to do with blue screen before motion control cameras.
Yeah, and I wasn't involved in the shoot a lot. They was shot professionally in New York City. And so, I mean, luckily, we just hammered it out. We found what to track onto, got our hands on it, and worked it. Basically, bashed it with a hammer until it looked good. Yeah, I don't know how to. It was a struggle from day one to the last shot. Wow. Was, as far as getting the compositing done.
And that, I mean, it looks really, I mean, you guys did a really good job. So you say you took everything you learned on Ripper and fixed it for Black Dahlia. So what kind of lessons did you learn on Ripper that you then wanted to improve on with Black Dahlia?
The big one was how it was shot. I need tracking markers. I need certain things. And I was like, I was part of the shoot for Ripper when we flew to LA for one scene or a few scenes. And I just got ran all over. Like I couldn't even put in input without them saying, "Oh, we know what we're doing. Don't listen to the kid." So I was getting a little tired of that because I knew what I needed. I knew how to get it out fast and get it. So I tried to do that with that shoot, but I didn't succeed. So I knew what to do for Black Dahlia. So they said, find. At first, we were going to use a production company to produce it, but then we were talking, and I was like, we don't really need a production company. We need more like a line producer, and we need to get all our own people situated. There was a company, PMI, in Pittsburgh here. They were really nice and they were really helpful, and we really wanted to use them, but we thought we would lose control, so to speak. So basically, we got the line producer, and I was told call a lighting guy and find a lighting guy that knows how to do blue screen. So I'm calling around, and there's Ed Lettieri is who I call. Now this guy is a pro. This guy, he lit entire avenues for car chase scenes. You know what I mean? And I'm this 25-year-old kid, and basically what I told him is I basically said, I don't remember the exact conversation, but I'm like, you're the pro, and I got some stuff I need, and I need you to listen to me. So if you're willing to work with me and listen to me, I'll hire you for this, because he's a hell of a guy. He listened to everything I said. He's like, I could see the doubt in his eyes, and I'm like, number one thing. It's like today in film, they light perfectly. But back then, they just had a standard way of lighting for TV. They put a little backlight on you to give an edge. And that edge created all kinds of problems. I'm like, Ed, I don't want any backlights. I said, I don't want you to glow the back of the person because I'm getting all these problems I had in Ripper. And that's the only way I could figure out that to get rid of all these problems. This backlighting kept making the hair glow.
It makes it hard to key out, I suppose.
Yeah, it makes it hard. You can key well, but it just doesn't match the background. Like every shot would have to have a glowing lamp behind you.
Yeah.
In order to get at that to work. And I don't really need that. I can add that. So and he's like, okay, we did a few tests. And then it's like, I see where you're going. I said, this is mass produced. We're going to have hours worth of footage, and we need to composite them quickly. And I think that was the number one thing. Ed working with me to make it easier. Like I told him where the tracking things. We shot some shots a little larger. And so the camera's actually locked down, but I'm moving the shot around.
Oh.
So I'm not cropping him. Like I won't crop off his arm, so that I can move him this way. Or I can move him in whatever way I want and not get cut off. So I was panning and scanning a green screen with the background removed, and I would lock that into a much larger 3D background, and I'd move it around, creating camera movement. And basically, we're taking standard, I call it standard def still, but it's 480p, and we're going to downsize it anyways, and we're going to take it to 12 frames per second. We're cutting everything in half, because computers couldn't even run full screen video back then. So it was a lot of trickery.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that because there are a lot of camera movements in Black Dahlia, and I was under the impression that if you wanted to like composite a live actor on a green screen or blue screen and have the 3D environment moving behind them, you would have to have some sort of tracking because otherwise the perspective wouldn't match. Like there's one scene where Pearson gets on a table, takes something out of a lamp, and then he jumps back down off the table, and the camera pans up, goes down again. So if that's just a pan and scan, then the table would sort of be in the same perspective. Uh,
Mhm.
so some of those shots must have been trickier than others, or are they all sort of cheating the eye a bit?
We had specific ones. We knew that they were going to be tricky. We had the tracking markers in the right place. We kind of kept it simple, and then we would try to match a camera. If we used any type of wide angle, we were having a little more problem.
Mm.
35 millimeter was a lot easier because wide angle, everything exaggerates in that 3D background. We tried to keep it simple. We used some tracking markers, and we made it work. And if it didn't look good, we fixed the background and tried it again and again and again until it looked.
There's no auto tracking back in those days, is there? It's not like After Effects where you say, okay, look at this cross, and then it just sort of auto does the background. I would assume there's some manual camera movement, like 3D camera movement involved.
Yeah, tracking works. Simple tracking works with 2 points.
Yeah.
You can track the 2 points. And you get a bit of a rotation that's not as accurate. The more points you have, the more accurate it gets. I think you're talking about what they call a 3D tracker, where it puts it in a whole environment. Which we use more 2D trackers, which the most accurates are 4 points. So if you were going to do a monitor on the screen, if you got those 4 points, you can nail that in there.
Yeah, I've done that with After Effects, and that's about as far as my expertise extends.
Yeah. We kept it about there. It was only for certain shots. Most of the time we didn't. Most of the time we used the pan and scan technique that I told you about, where the actors actually shot still.
All right. Okay.
Pull away a little bit, move to make the background real big, and stick them in there.
Nice. Okay, that actually explains, because there are a lot of shots that are just like a little bit of a tilt, a little bit of a pan and stuff like that. And I'm like, God damn, did you have to re-render the entire background every time you wanted to make an adjustment?
Nope, it's a still frame.
Oh, okay. That explains a little bit, because I was like, really, holy shit. Because some FMVs of the time tried to do like, let's pan across and we'll have to manually the 3D camera has to manually match the cameraman's shot, and the cameraman's hand is a little wobbly, so sometimes it looks like characters' legs are floating above the ground and stuff like that. And Black Dahlia doesn't really have any of that. It's like people look like their feet are planted on the ground. So I was like, wow, that must have taken forever.
Yeah, we had a lot of things in the rooms that were loops. So let's say we wanted something to happen, like we wanted a clock to rotate or something. We would have just a clock rotating, and we'd put that in as a layer. The background was usually a 95%, 99% probably. It was a still frame, but we would put little animations in there to make it look like the background was rendered full frame, a nice big loop, but it's just a little clock that's doing its thing.
Well, how about there's a couple of scenes where Pearson is pissing around in the underground catacombs, and he comes into this very, very big room, and there's flames and bloom and shit spewing off the big Indiana Jones bridge he has to cross. I don't know if you remember that scene, but there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So is that like a full 3D, or is it, again, you're tricking my eye, you're putting in a little layer of mist coming up behind the bridge kind of thing?
Well, that scene was pegged to be problematic right from the very beginning. So that was part of our pre-tests before we even... I believe that was shot separately because we wanted to test with that room. But even before we shot everything else, I believe. I can't remember.
Yeah, Darren said that was the first thing they shot, was the Indiana Jones stuff.
Right, exactly. So there was a reason for that because they didn't know if it could pull it off. And when they went into the actual shoot, if we needed to reshoot it, we were going to. The problem was they added the light on the actors, and then the flames are fake.
Yeah.
So luckily, everything flickers kind of. You just get the speed of the flicker right in the flames, and you just color correct your background. So
Yeah.
you can color correct your background, red off, red off, red off, red off, and then
Yeah.
you could just put the spot on the wall without rendering that whole background over and over again. You're just animating a color correction, putting a 3D fire in there,
Yeah.
and it worked well. So we didn't have to go any further.
It looks great. And I suppose it helped a bit that Darren's torch was actually real. So he's actually almost setting himself on fire with that thing. And the flickering on his shirt is primarily cast from that light source.
Right. And that's why he has, you got a green screen that flicks while he's flickering so much. We didn't know what we were going to get. So we wanted to do it first. Basically, I remember doing the test sort of. There was a gap of time in there, but basically I had time to take it back, work with it a little bit, and say, "Yeah, we're good."
All right.
Yeah.
Good. So were you involved with the creation of the 3D rendered backgrounds? Because your credit just says lead compositor. Were you involved in the architecture of the backgrounds? What camera angles and such were chosen? Or were you just given footage until? Sorry.
No, I was given rooms that were completely 3D made, and I would put the camera in and adjust it, and somebody else did almost all the lighting and everything. Almost, let's just say the rooms were finished, and then I would put the camera in where I needed it, and then I would make it. I would render out a quick version. I'd bring it in. Everything looks good. If not, I'd change the camera and I'd get it locked down. And if we needed something special, I would be bugging the 3D guys, but we really couldn't. We couldn't go back and forth so much. It wasn't so bad with Black Dahlia, but with Ripper, it was a problem. So we kind of kept that technique pretty much the same. If it was just a simple background, we just have them render it out. The person who worked on the room.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would just get rooms. I'd put in a camera. I'd pop out a still frame, and if something was needed to be animated, then I would render out just that section.
Yeah, because Eric said he would have like a little pre-viz kind of thing, so he could put his camera where he needed it to be. So if I'm understanding the pipeline correctly, there's a storyboard. The VFX guys build the room. No, sorry, the 3D artists build the room. Good morning. Yeah. You look at the storyboard, put the camera where it's supposed to be, hand off the pre-renders, kind of pre-viz renders to Eric. Eric knows where to put the live actors where the shot is, and he shoots the thing, goes back, and the thing is composited. And you're saying the Ripper pipeline was a little different. Did they shoot all the video first and then went, all right, 3D guys, do your thing?
Yeah.
Okay. That must have been fun.
There might have been a few previz renders because, we got movie stars in there, and those scenes were paid more attention to, what I mean? Christopher Walken and Ripper. Yeah, so most part, sporadically. But I wasn't involved in Ripper's shoot. Ripper was in New York and I was back at Take Two and didn't even know we needed a compositing department yet.
All right, so Black Dahlia was more hands-on, more local, and the workflow was a bit more streamlined in a way.
Yeah, basically everything was shot. That was me working with Ed. I'm like, Ed, I'm going to make your job easy. I want everything lit somewhat flat. I want a little bit more light on one side than the other. If we know where the light's coming from, put the light over here. But don't make him so bright that he would match the light. I just want a little bit more light on this side, on this shot, and on that shot, put a little bit more light on this side. We just want it to look, three-dimensional, the character. Because I showed Ed how I can brighten things up. I can put a light on the side of a person's head. I can make it red. I can make it blue. I can make it green on the actors. So I don't need all these colors. I don't need to match the room perfectly. Plus, there was no time to match the room perfectly. You can't go through and make 4 hours worth of green screen, once it's all edited down. It took like 16 days to shoot. You can't do that and have perfectly lighted scenes.
No.
And trying to take the light, too hot of a light, trying to get rid of that, that's impossible.
No, it's the same in audio. Like if something's recorded too hot, it's impossible to fix. But if it's recorded soft, you can always do it better or like boost it and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know audio a bit better than I know VFX. So I always have to translate into a field that I have at least some slight familiarity with. I wish I could do VFX. I really do. That's why I was piddling around in After Effects for a bit. And then, I went for tracking plane stuff. That's about as advanced as I got. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Blender, I made a couple of 3D letters and made them spin around. And I was like, yeah, that's as far as I'm going to get. So I have all kinds of respect for people who do VFX. I love watching behind the scenes documentaries about how they did stuff. But when I look at it, it's just fucking magic.
And it changes so fast, year after year after year. Change.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been, as I'm working, I've been in school the whole 30 years.
Well, let's talk a bit about some of the VFX shots in Black Dahlia, because there are some, I think, really impressive ones in that. But like you said, VFX is not just all the flashy shots. It's also the subtle stuff. You mentioned you could fix lighting. You wanted the actors lit flatly, so you can do shadows and highlighting and stuff like that. What other kind of VFX are done on a shoot like Black Dahlia where people wouldn't normally know it was a VFX shot?
The obvious, when you got lightning, not just lightning zapping out of his hand on his eye,
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
Right. But just in general, pretty much everything is fake. I mean, that lighting on those torches was probably the only real lighting that flickered in the whole project.
Yeah.
When you strike a lightning bolt in the air, you hear the thunder, and then the room just kind of flashes bright and the room dies. I can do all that animating color correction.
Yeah.
The room blasts, and then if I need to stick another frame in there when the room blasts, I can render out a frame of the background much brighter and put that in if I'm losing my color. Any scenes in particular you're talking about? The memory's fading.
No, it's just because I was watching like again a corridor crew. Sorry, that's where I get most of my information. An episode about stuff like David Fincher's Mank, which is not a movie you would normally associate with having a big VFX budget.
I worked on that.
You did? Wow. Yes. Oh yeah, I remember. I was actually reading through IMDb credits about that one escaped me. But yeah, that movie actually had a ton of VFX. And you normally associate VFX with big explosions or people becoming monsters and stuff like that. But
okay, just more in general, not so much Black Dahlia. I got you. Yeah, everything. Like I worked on a sock when he was laying in the bed on that movie. If there's reasons like in John Wick 4, when he's like punching that piece of wood, boom, and he's blasting his fist into that piece of wood. He's about an inch away from that wood. I cut the fist out, I pound into the wood, I move the wood, so that he's not hitting the wood barely at all in some cases,
Yeah.
So all the in John Wick 4, all the lighting of the fire pits and all that, that was all put in afterwards, you know.
Yeah.
So
But you said like the sock in a drawer, you wouldn't normally think that sock was CGI, but why was there a CGI sock in there?
I couldn't remember exactly. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but he's laying in the bed and there was something to do with his foot, and he has a sock on his foot, and I had to do something with the sock. Now I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, okay, but
That
that's exactly the sort of thing I mean. Like you would not even think there was VFX in the shot at all.
right, like in way back in the Incredible Hulk, um, when the very first shot, it's like a helicopter shot flying over the city, and he's standing on top of the building. He's not Hulk, and he's got a wife beater shirt on. Well, some of those shots he doesn't have a wife beater shirt on. Like the shirt was disappearing, so I needed to add a wife beater shirt on that helicopter scene
Yeah,
flying over, so he's not standing there shirtless. You know, and
yeah,
basically a 3D shirt's tracked in and rendered, and you would never know that that was not a real. Why would they just got it wrong when they shot it?
yeah. Exactly. That's the sort of thing. And I think the only thing in Black Dahlia that comes to mind is there's one. Well, you can sort of tell it's VFX. There's one scene where he reaches into he's 1941. He's in his army clothes and he actually finds the Black Dahlia. It's in this little safe and he picks it up and the thing starts like glowing and glinting in the light and it's casting a blue shadow on his face and such. You would think maybe they just lit a flashlight under this thing and it's flashing, but I'm assuming that was a VFX shot.
Yeah, most likely it was.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I would avoid them doing it live every chance I got. I
Yeah.
would do it myself. I can control every aspect of it. You know, if I needed to roto the arm to get the light behind the hand, you know,
Yeah.
I would do it rather than being stuck with what I get.
But let's say Black Dahlia is in 98. It was released in 98. So you were probably working on it in 97. Like
Yeah.
how advanced were things like rotoing and background separation, color correction, all this sort of stuff? Like it's to me, it sounds like it was like a long time ago. It was like the time when Toy Story and Ice Age 1 came out. So I mean, we're not talking super advanced tools by today's standards.
Well, we were running that software,
Yeah.
that software Flame, which is had a lot of capabilities. You know, After Effects and all the every compositing software throughout the years has the power, but what Flame had is had the speed of the hardware pushing it so that I could do things quickly and I could try it 3 or 4 different times and the other guy is still trying to get the roto right, you know.
Mm.
We could roto pretty decent back then on that software. And if you took time and you spent a day on it in After Effects, you'd get it, you know. But we didn't have that kind of time to use that type of software, so we had to make it happen fast. So basically, and when something's glowing and it's blasting with light, and you know your roto doesn't have to be perfect.
No, you just put an extra gloom of light in, and which okay, it's time to roll down the big VFX shots. If you don't remember them, that's fine, but these are the ones that stood out to me. The big one, the blue void room. Whenever Darren Pearson has one of his little trippy moments, he ends up in this blue void with a door and the torso killer hacking away at a desk and tickling his forehead with a walking stick and all sorts. What was the inspiration for the blue void?
No, that wasn't really my call.
Oh, okay.
So I would get the blue void and I would put him in there and make it look good. That's my job. So
Right.
that would be the writers and and all that.
All
Sounds
right.
like something Patrick would do.
And the room is already modeled by the time you get your hands on him.
Yeah, and that, we'd get all the footage back, and all the 3D artists were all away making all the rooms and making all the backgrounds. And then when I got to that one on the list, first of all, they'd tell me which ones were ready. You know, I would shuffle depending on what was ready.
Yeah. All right. Did you work on any of the cool transitions from the real world to the melty blue room or the trippy dream sequences?
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
All right, because there's a really, really cool transition effect whenever he goes into one of his little fits, and it's that the real world starts melting away, it's like a wax candle dribbling away, and then the dream world sort of builds itself up from again, it's like a reverse candle wax thing. That transition effect is so amazing to me. Any stories about that one?
Well, chances are it was more than just a transition effect, so to speak, like from an editing point of view. It was more along the lines as probably like in the 3D, they actually rendered it coming together.
Mm.
And then they gave me something more to work with than just trying to do a transition. Plus, there's crazy backgrounds in the foregrounds and the wall in the back could all be separate layers. So we could be like dissolving the wall while bringing in this crazy background, while the foreground is still the floor, the desk is still part of the front layer,
Yeah.
so to speak. So we had a lot more to work with if we gave it some time and thought about it. We're pretty much building a 3-dimensional transition, not just an editing type of transition.
Yeah, because it looks so good. It really, really looks like the world is melting around him and then rebuilding it. So I thought it looked really, really cool. I suppose similar thing with the door rip, I call it. At one point, Winslow has this weird dagger thing, and he sort of just slashes into nothing, and this big wide door opens up, this wide door, and then he jumps through it, and off he goes. And that door rip has all sorts of wiggly, squiggly particle effects around it and such. That's also a really, really cool effect. Did you work on that one?
Absolutely, I remember that one. They're basically, I had the freedom of, okay, he's going to stick a knife and he's going to slice it. So I had to work with the image to bend it and get that slice going, and then the particles. But the key to making it look good is, in this case, wasn't it wasn't written down specifically. It was, I could add particles. Oh, they don't look good. Throw those away. Try these particles. That I don't know. We'll keep a little bit of that. Make it 50% transparent. Throw on different particles. You know. So it was just kind of have fun with it until something comes out that looks like you did it on purpose.
Yeah. But also that the actual like ripping, the tearing of it tracks his hand motion really cleanly. So his hand motion actually defines how big the portal is going to be.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really, really good. And of
Yeah,
course,
it was
oh, sorry.
basically let Henry have fun, or one of us. You know, we were there was a few of those slices, right? Not just one.
There was a few of them, yeah.
Yeah.
There's one funny one that Darren told me about, was him coming out of one of those rips. He had to, no, it's actually going into. He had to jump off this blue box and just sort of hurl himself through it and land on his face, but he misjudged the distance because you can't tell distance inside of a completely blue room, so he just slammed face first into the wall. And he was covered in blood and soot and all this, so they had to wait around and repaint the goddamn wall.
Yeah.
Poor guy. But yeah, so one thing we absolutely have to mention is the Raiders of the Lost Ark ghosts at the end.
Yeah.
After the Black Dahlia, after Odin pops out of the Black Dahlia and goes, "No, bitch," Winslow is consumed by the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let's be honest. Raiders of the Lost Ark was probably, I mean, according to Patrick Freeman, they were a big inspiration. So
Yeah, sure.
what was
It's
your
like, I gotta say, Darren had that charm that only Raiders of the Lost Ark, or maybe Brendan Fraser from The Mummy.
yeah.
You know, he had those little. those little smirks and those little looks, and I didn't even realize I made friends with him, on the set, but I didn't realize how good he was until I watched it afterwards. I mean, I'm like, this guy is amazing.
Oh, he sells it. And he's one of my favorite scenes is actually in the post office where he just is exasperated and has to try and receive this package that he just sent 2 feet away to this other guy, and you can just see the forced smile coming out. It's beautiful.
Right.
But anyway, the Raiders Ghosts. What was the brief on that, and how hog wild did you go?
So that was another one of those kind of have fun with it type of things. Like, okay, we need these ghosts flying around. So I do believe there was more than one of them flying around, right?
There's like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. So I had to make me a whole bunch of them just flying around. Now, when you get them, they're just kind of flat. You know, their transparency maybe have some transparency to them, but they're pretty much not glowing, not smoky, so you time all these layers. You say, give me 20 of them and I'll keep adding different ones in until I can get something that looks like it's happening, that is good looking. So it's playing with all the timing, and then once you get all the timing down, this is where you just kind of have fun with it again. Like, oh, add a glow, add a brighter glow, turn it down, add particles, with the software, I could add a stream of smoke, and as it's moving around, you just keep building on it until it looks like something fun.
Yeah.
We set apart a little bit of time for certain shots that we weren't going to just rush through, and it's just keep playing with it until it looks fancy. Like one time I had a shark swimming in water animation, and I just kept messing. I put environment in. The shark's tail is faded. The shark's eyes are bright. The shark was just a flat render. It looked like totally like a bad cartoon render, a bad 3D render. But once you add all the environment in, once you sink it in and you glow the eyes, and you can really create a lot of dimension.
Yeah. Side note, see, I'm really bad at 2D art, but I like making point and click adventure games in my spare time. One thing I'm really upset about is that Adobe took out the 3D lighting capabilities in Photoshop, because usually when I would draw something, it would look like 2D flat and complete garbage because I can't draw for shit. But once I put in a couple of 2D lights in it, like a little fake lighting, it all of a sudden it looked a lot better.
You nailed it. Okay, that's what's happening.
Really upset they took that out. I've been trying to get an old version of Photoshop running, and I just cannot do it.
So imagine like you add a couple little lights, and you're like, okay, that looks good. I add some particles. I like them kind of, but I don't love them. So let's make them 10%. So they're there, but they're barely there.
Mm.
And then instead of using the particles, let's glow the particles and use only the glow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like once you throw 3 or 4 of those things that you halfway liked, leave them in there a little bit, and then put that one thing that looks great. Oh, this smoke stream. Leave that full blast and run with it.
Do you know what that actually translates into audio as well? Making music, like if you have something in the background it sounds weird if it's like up front and center, or if you put it down so you can barely hear it, it still works, because if you take it out, it's like something's missing. But if you put it back in, you can't really hear it, but it's subconsciously there. That kind of, again, audio is where I'm at. And one thing I noticed in the Raiders ghost scene is that you also have Winslow slightly levitating as he's being like consumed by these, and the ghosts fly past him. So I'm assuming he had to roto the dude so he could levitate a little bit, and the ghosts could fly past him and behind him.
He was most likely on green screen, blue screen. I'm sorry.
I mean, he was. I think
Right.
the whole thing, except for the intro, which we will get to.
So lifting him, I don't remember them doing that on the set. So
No,
I would have
he's
probably,
behind a big table, so
yeah. So
that's the trouble.
you don't see his feet.
Yeah,
So yeah, his feet wouldn't have to go like that. So which we could have added on if we needed to. But yeah, so he was just lifted because he's cut out on blue screen.
oh, he might have just been standing on his tippy toes then. Oh, that actually makes more
Possible.
sense.
It's possible.
All
And
right,
most likely I moved them up.
probably.
I remember working on that shot. I mean, it was pretty stressful because like during the shoot, something it was supposed to be like different with his eye. And they're like, we can't we can't do this kind of makeup on his eye. Like it's not working out. So basically we're like I'm pretty much saying, well, if you put a patch over his eye and it looks all bloody, I say, well, I'll add the lightning in
Mm,
and I'll make it look burnt.
yeah,
And that's how the lightning came into the when he's reaching into his eye, that magical lightning. I added it in to make it look like his eye socket was full and burnt.
yeah. I was gonna save that one for last actually, because that's my favorite effect shot in the whole. Because I like horror movies, I like a bit of prosthetic makeup, gore, and stuff like that. So the bit where he reaches in and pulls his eye out, yeah, much of it is obscured with the whole lightning stuff, but there's one close-up shot of him after he's done it where you can see the full prosthetic and you can see all the scorching and there's a little bit of smoke rising up from it. So that how much of that was prosthetics and how much of it was VFX?
Just an eye patch that was looked like it was scab
Yeah.
when they were done. That's pretty much that's pretty much it. Everything else was, me animating lightning and color correction changes and everything else.
Yeah. I'm assuming the actual eyeball is a realistic prop because maybe it's just like an egg with a bit of goo attached to it.
I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I remember seeing the eyeball on the set, but I didn't have it in my own hand.
All right. Are there any other effect shots in Black Dahlia that you're like really proud of? It doesn't have to be a major one. It's just like one that you worked on and you went, that came out really well.
I have to say, this is why I think all of us are excited to talk to you about this, because just in general, it never got its day.
No.
It never got its day. The suffering of Ripper was a punishment on the whole company to get it done. And Black Dahlia went so smoothly that I just have to say how smooth it went is my yes, I did it. Like it was the opposite of Ripper in every way. We just did the shots, we had fun with it. Everything was working. We got, if I had to staff up, I could find places for people to work that working on their level. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The 3D people were so much better that they suffered through Ripper. We had it so streamlined, and I don't know if it was the subject matter or I mean I love the murder mystery aspect of it. I mean the acting was great. It's never got its time to shine.
No.
It came out and kind of disappeared, and Ripper was extremely famous in comparison. So yeah, I'm so proud of it. It launched my career. It Ripper and Dahlia together, but me actually being in charge of something and it going so smoothly, I was really going to pat myself on the back. But I still never got Darren knew, certain people knew, but Ed Letteria, the lighting guy, he knew, but I was still a youngster, and I don't think they realized how me and Ed did to make it flow and just boom, 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 boom. It just got out the door. I mean, compared to Ripper, I mean, it was a dream.
Oh yeah, because you said Ripper came out to about 3 hours of video, and I cut together Black Dahlia into I took all the FMVs and cut them together into a single movie like edit. It came out to about 4 hours, and I had to leave stuff out because there are alternate ways you can go in a conversation and stuff. So there's more than 4 hours of video in that thing. And like you said, the shoot was like I heard from Eric, the shoot was like, let's just go. Like get up in the morning, go home at 4 or 5 p.m. and get up and do it again the next day.
Yeah, it was. It was. I was on that shoot the whole time. I mean, we had fun with it, and it just was working. I got to give credit to the actors, though. Um, Darren and David. They were just they didn't take a lot of takes or anything. They were having fun with it too. But as soon as that camera was on, they were pros.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things about the game is that chemistry that the two of them have, and David's smirk, like he's every used car salesman you want to punch in the face. He's so good. I have a couple of theories as to why it didn't do as well as Ripper. Timing, FMVs were considered a dead art form at the time, unfortunately, and two, it only ran on Windows. Ripper was DOS. Dahlia required Windows, and it required a very esoteric setup, and it is almost completely unplayable on a modern system, whereas you can run Ripper in DOSBox. So I think that's one of the, a couple of the factors.
That's that whole coming out of Windows 95 where everybody felt forced to change. It was the programmers, it was a nightmare.
Yeah. I'm actually hoping to get hold of the lead programmer whose name I was just looking up this morning and has now escaped me. I'm very sorry. I'll put his name on the screen right now. I'm hoping to get in touch with him actually because there are some interesting things I want to ask him about the programming as well. But yeah, and also I think maybe the fact that the game was marketed as a period drama, or like a period drama with a little bit of superstitious stuff in it, when in reality it's just completely batshit in the best possible way. Like it takes literally like 30 minutes for the whole game to start unraveling in the best possible way, and then there's 8 CDs of Darren Elliger tripping balls essentially. And
you're right, 100%. I thought it should have been not so much with Black Dahlia, but for Ripper, we had some interesting people. Remember Tom Savini?
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, he's from Pittsburgh. He did a lot of those old murder, horror movies.
Yeah.
Shot in Pittsburgh, Night of the Living Dead, type of stuff. And so he was famous, and he wanted to work on Ripper. His cousin, I know his cousin, he worked at PMI here in Pittsburgh, and his cousin's name was Zoot. And he told Tom Savini about it. Tom Savini wanted in, so I tried to work this out. So they were so afraid that they would lose their power. Let's say they would lose the writing, they would lose the project if somebody with popularity came in. But I thought Tom Savini would be a great mix in there, just to throw his name in there, make him do, even if he did like half the scenes,
Yeah.
But that blood gore, that would have been good in Black Dahlia too,
yeah. I mean, you guys had Paul. Oh, sorry. You guys had Paul Giamatti in Ripper before he was a big name actor. Probably the one who puts in the best performance in that game, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, having, and I mean, Dahlia has a couple of not like no name actors, but more like a hey, I know that guy kind of actor. Like there's the dude in the post office who was also in 13 Monkeys, and like people like
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
Yep, me neither. Uh, but yeah, there's
You got some good actors in Ripper.
really good talent. Oh, speaking of which, we've got the two child actors in the opening, which is actually the only bit of Dahlia that's shot on location. And as far as I'm told, you were either directing that or you were at least co-directing that. You were involved in that in some capacity.
Yeah,
Which capacity was that?
Lance was working with me. I was training him on the flame, and I gave Lance the directing. He came out of school wanting to direct and everything. We set it all up. We we did, both of us did the whole intro. It was shot in the place where I used to fish when I was a kid, on the river of Pittsburgh, underneath the bridge, like across from Sandcastle Park. I don't think Sandcastle was there back then.
With no permit, as I'm told.
Um, Not much of a permit, if any at all. Like, we had permission to go down there, but there was things about crossing the tracks with equipment and stuff. I'm not sure. But I knew it was a great spot. I knew the spot, and it was very, very spooky. Looking wooded right up against the water, the kind of place that you'd find a dead body,
Yeah.
It came to mind immediately. So we ended up shooting it there, and I kind of took the the producer's role, and let Lance Laspina. I let Lance run with it, and he did a great job.
Oh yeah, it looks great. What was the impetus for doing just the intro on location and then do everything else on a blue screen? Who made that decision and why?
It's back then, doing woods, trying to render woods and trees and rivers and a spooky location. It didn't make sense. There was no real reason for it to be on a 3D set.
The whole wafting of trees and stuff.
Yeah, the whole running through woods, jumping over trees type of thing. That would have been too difficult back then. Trying to make that in composite would have took us way more time, way more energy. Saying it's in the woods, let's just shoot it in the woods.
All right, so it's basically Patrick's fault. Like, he wrote chasing through the woods, and you go, right, well, guess we'll have to go to the woods then.
As far as I remember, yes.
All righty.
This is what they wanted. Plus, it was being created. The intro was being created when we were only doing tests at, maybe at the same time, around the time we were doing those fire torch tests.
Yeah.
We didn't do a green screen shoot yet, and we want an intro, So it's better just to grab some cameras and run out there and do it. And it didn't even have to be the fancy cameras. We got some pretty decent cameras. We got a crew. But, when we compress it and we put it into gaming, like nowadays you could have just used your iPhone,
I know, right? I mean, there is a bit of a resurgence in FMV games these days, primarily because people have realized that you can make an FMV game that actually looks fairly decent with an iPhone and a copy of DaVinci Resolve. It's an adventure game studio. Like, it's not that hard to do anymore.
Right.
Which is, and I honestly think this is why I'm doing this. I think Black Dahlia was one of the last, if not the last, good FMV game in an era that was unfortunately filled with a lot of slop. Black Dahlia does not get talked about enough.
Like I was saying, his connections, Ryan Brandt's connections to Hollywood and bringing those actors in, he wanted to get those actors into his games. But Take-Two was getting big. It was getting... It went from a small company to a pretty big company pretty fast, and they were building some pretty cool games, first-person shooters, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 games, and they were getting pretty popular. And where the money was, where they were counting their money the most, was from the other games. And
yeah,
something like Black Dahlia was expensive to create, So I think when they did the math, they're like, okay, first thing that dropped off was the kids department. We need those resources to, make more of these. You gotta make more
Yeah.
money. Same thing with Black Dahlia. You know,
Yeah.
I think Ryan, he was younger than me. But he had certain passions. I believe he really liked the kid stuff, and I think he really wanted the Hollywood actors in. But when it comes down to math, I think he I would guess he gave in.
I mean, there was a little thing, I believe it was Steve Glassstetter who said there was a little thing called Grand Theft Auto that was poking its head out at the time. It seemed to be where the money was going. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
what
really
happened.
was.
Quick detour into the on location opening thing, and I'll let you go in a moment. There's the close up of the torso killer unwrapping his tools. Like he unfolds this little belt, and he's got like butcher's knives and daggers and stuff like that in it. And the camera is all wonky, and there's all this scribbling going on around him, and backwards mask noises. Did you guys watch Seven recently when you did that?
Most likely,
It's very
because I
Seven-ish.
love that movie.
Me too.
I was a big fan of it. So, sure, I
Mm.
would say it has a lot of involvement in it, how it looks.
I'll tell you now, for the retrospective video I'm doing. There's a friend of mine who does like little intros for my videos, and he usually does like a very not like a sarcastic take, but like a really sort of snarky kind of way. And he just took the opening scene of Black Dahlia, but with the unwrapping, there's just like kitchen utensils instead. And he picks up a cheese grater and just goes and puts it down. It's like a wooden spoon and stuff like that. So you'll see it. It's actually really funny.
Awesome.
All right. Well, that's all I have, really.
Great.
You've been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, awesome memories. Awesome memories. Thank you.